Cordelia Ashcroft scrubbed the nursery floor on her knees, the lye soap splitting the skin between her fingers. Because the last three governesses had resigned within a fortnight and the agency refused to send another. She had once owned this house. Now she worked in it. "You missed a spot near the baseboard," said Mrs. Haverford, standing in the doorway with her arms folded. The housekeeper's voice carried the particular satisfaction of someone who had waited years for this reversal. Cordelia sat back on her heels. She counted the floorboards between them. "7," she said aloud. "7 boards between you and the mess. Yet somehow you've never managed to cross them yourself." Mrs. Haverford's mouth thinned. She had been the housekeeper when Cordelia's father owned Briarstone Hall. She had curtsied to Cordelia then. She did not curtsy now. "The East Wing needs attention," Mrs. Haverford said. "The new master arrives Thursday. Lord Vael purchased this estate and everything in it." "Including the servants who flee every room past the gallery?" Cordelia wrung out the rag. The water had gone cold. "Including you, Miss Ashcroft. You signed the contract, governess, for whatever wards Lord Vael installs. If you refuse the East Wing, you forfeit your wages and your quarters." The housekeeper smiled. "And there is nowhere else for you to go, is there?" That was true. Cordelia had sold Briarstone Hall 18 months ago to pay her father's debts. Debts she had not created but had inherited like a disease of the blood. The sale had saved 27 families from the creditors who would have seized their tenant farms. She had traded a fortune for their safety. In return, she had received a position as governess in her own former home and a room the size of a linen closet. Every servant in Briarstone knew the East Wing was wrong. The candles guttered without drafts. Doors opened into rooms that smelled of frost in August. The housemaids reported hearing someone reading aloud in a language none of them recognized. The footmen refused to deliver coal past sunset. Cordelia stood, dried her hands on her apron, and picked up the bucket. "Tell me which room." "The old library, at the end of the east corridor." Mrs. Haverford stepped aside to let her pass. "Every servant fled the East Wing, Miss Ashcroft. Everyone." "Then it should be quiet enough for reading," Cordelia said. She counted the steps to the corridor. 14. She always counted when she was afraid. That first night, she carried a candle and a volume of Tennyson into the East Wing library. The air changed at the gallery threshold, warmer where it should have been cold, carrying the scent of old paper and something else. Cedar, perhaps, or sandalwood. The library door stood open. Inside, the shelves reached to the coffered ceiling. Someone had arranged fresh flowers on the reading table. White roses, their petals perfectly unfurled, though no one had entered this room in weeks. Cordelia set down her candle. She opened Tennyson, and she read aloud. She read because the contract required a governess to maintain educational routines, even when there were no wards to teach. She read because the silence in this wing had weight. She read because her voice was the one thing the creditors had not been able to take. The candle flame held perfectly still, not a flicker, as if the room itself were listening. She came back the next night and the next. On the fourth night, she found a second chair pulled to the reading table. She had not moved it. No servant would enter the East Wing to move it. 15 pages in, she said to the empty room. "If you'd like to catch up, the book is on the table during daylight." Something shifted in the shadows near the far shelves. Not a sound exactly, a quality of attention, like the moment before a chord resolves. She kept reading. On Thursday, Lord Vael arrived. Cordelia was polishing the banister in the main hall when the carriage pulled up. She counted the horses. 4 matched blacks, their breath steaming in the October air. The coachman opened the door and a man descended who looked as though he had been carved from the same marble as the hall's columns. He was tall, dark-haired, and pale in a way that suggested not illness, but permanence. His eyes moved across the facade of Briarstone Hall with an expression she recognized. It was the look of someone returning to a place they had loved too long ago to explain. "Lord Vael," Mrs. Haverford swept forward with her best curtsy. "Welcome to Briarstone Hall. The staff is assembled for your inspection." His gaze passed over the line of servants and stopped on Cordelia. She was still holding the polishing cloth. Her dress was her plainest. Her hair was coming loose from its pins. He looked at her the way one looks at a painting encountered unexpectedly in a foreign gallery. Recognition without context. His lips parted, then closed. "You," he said. "Me," Cordelia agreed. She folded the cloth into a precise square. "The governess, Cordelia Ashcroft." Something crossed his face, a flash of emotion so intense it seemed almost like pain. He recovered in the space of a breath. "Ashcroft, you were the previous owner." "I was. Now I dust what I used to own. Life has a sense of humor." She counted the buttons on his coat. 8 silver. Mrs. Haverford stepped between them. "Miss Ashcroft has been assigned to the East Wing, my lord, per your instructions regarding future wards." Lord Vael turned to the housekeeper with sudden sharpness. "I gave no such instructions." Mrs. Haverford's composure cracked for a single moment. "I understood from the solicitor." "You understood incorrectly. No one is to enter the East Wing." His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed across centuries. "I've already been going there for 4 nights, Cordelia said. Both of them turned to her. Reading aloud Tennyson, "The room seems to appreciate it." The silence that followed was absolute. Lord Vael stared at her with an intensity that made the housekeeper take a step backward. "You read in the East Wing library," he already said all at night alone. "The candles don't flicker there. It's better light than my own room." Cordelia met his gaze. "Is there a reason I should stop?" "Several," he said, but he did not name them. That evening, Mrs. Haverford summoned Cordelia to the servants' hall with a document in her hand. "Lord Vail's solicitor has reviewed your contract," she said, laying the paper on the table. The other servants watched from the edges of the room. "Your position as governess was contingent on the arrival of wards. No wards have arrived. No wards are expected." Cordelia picked up the document. The language was clear enough. Termination of employment, effective in 14 days. Forfeiture of quarters. "Convenient timing," Cordelia said. She counted the witnesses, 9 servants, all watching. "I've been here 18 months without a review. Lord Vael arrives, I speak 3 sentences to him, and suddenly my contract is void." "The contract speaks for itself," Mrs. Haverford said. Her motive was no secret. She wanted Cordelia gone. And Ashcroft scrubbing floors was a daily reminder that fortunes turned. Worse, Cordelia knew every account, every expenditure, every quiet arrangement the housekeeper had made during the transition of ownership, including the silver that had gone missing. "I noticed paragraph 9, Cordelia said, still reading. "The governess may retain her position if she demonstrates ongoing educational service to any resident of the household." She looked up. "I've been reading to the East Wing every night. That constitutes educational service." "To whom?" Mrs. Haverford's voice was sharp. "There is no one in the East Wing." "Then no one will mind if I continue." The housekeeper's jaw set. "I will bring this to Lord Vail's attention." "Please do. I'd welcome the conversation." But it was Lord Vael who came to the East Wing that night. Cordelia was reading Keats when the door opened. She did not look up immediately. She finished the stanza. Then she raised her eyes. He stood in the doorway with no candle. The corridor behind him was dark, yet he had navigated it without light. His silver buttons caught the glow from her single flame. "You read beautifully," he said. "I read competently. The acoustics in this room do the rest." He entered and stood near the far shelves, the same place where she had sensed that quality of attention on previous nights. The realization settled into her slowly, like water into sand. "It was you," she said. "Listening? Every night." "Yes. You were already here before Thursday, before the carriage and the 4 black horses." He did not deny it. "I have been here longer than you know." "How much longer?" She counted his breaths, then realized she could not. He did not seem to breathe at all. "That is not a question I can answer tonight, Miss Ashcroft." "Then answer this. Mrs. Haverford is trying to have me dismissed. Did you instruct her?" "No, the word was immediate. I gave no such instruction. I will speak to her." "I don't need you to speak to her. I need my contract honored." Cordelia closed her book. "I sold this house to save people who depended on my family. I kept nothing. I became a servant in my own home because It was the only position that let me ensure the tenants' agreements were respected. If I leave, Mrs. Haverford will renegotiate those agreements. She has been waiting for the chance. Lord Vail was quiet. His eyes held that same strange recognition, as if he were seeing someone else's face layered beneath her own. "Who do I remind you of?" Cordelia asked. He blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "You looked at me today as if I were a ghost. You're doing it again now." "I am not a ghost, Lord Vail. I am a very tired woman with cracked hands and a 14-day notice." "Who do I remind you of?" For a long moment, only the candle flame existed between them. It still did not flicker. "Someone I failed," he said, "a very long time ago." "Then perhaps you might start by not failing me." She stood and tucked Keats under her arm. "Good night, Lord Vail. I'll be here tomorrow. Same time." She left him standing in the library among the white roses that no one had planted. 3 days later, Mrs. Haverford escalated. Cordelia returned from the kitchen garden to find her room emptied. Her trunk stood in the entrance hall. Her few remaining possessions, her mother's cameo, her father's pocket watch, a bundle of letters, were laid across the top with deliberate carelessness. "What is this?" Cordelia asked. Her voice was steady. She counted the items. 12. Everything she owned in the world. "Lord Vail's solicitor has confirmed the termination," Mrs. Haverford said. She held a letter bearing a legal seal. "Effective immediately, not 14 days. The firm of Blackwell and Thorpe has determined that reading to an empty room does not constitute educational service." Cordelia took the letter. The signature belonged to a Mr. Blackwell she had never met. But the phrasing, she recognized Mrs. Haverford's particular syntax in the complaint paragraph. "You drafted this complaint yourself," Cordelia said. Mr. Blackwell simply signed it. "Prove it." The housekeeper's smile was small and perfect. 3 footmen stood nearby. The cook watched from the kitchen corridor. None of them met Cordelia's eyes. They were afraid, not of ghosts, of losing their positions. "You've also been selling the household silver," Cordelia said quietly. 16 pieces since the transition." "I kept a ledger." Mrs. Haverford's face went white. "You have no proof." "I have a ledger with dates, descriptions, and the name of the dealer in the village. It's not in my trunk, if that's what you're wondering." The housekeeper recovered quickly. "Slander from a dismissed governess carries no weight. You have 1 hour to leave the grounds." The front door opened. Lord Vail stepped into the hall. He took in the scene in a single glance, the trunk, the scattered possessions, Cordelia standing with the letter in her hand. Mrs. Haverford flushed and rigid. "What is happening here?" he said. "Miss Ashcroft's employment has been lawfully terminated, my lord," the housekeeper said, "per your solicitor's determination." "I did not authorize a termination." Lord Vail looked at the letter in Cordelia's hand. "May I?" Cordelia handed it to him. Their fingers touched. His were cold, not uncomfortably so, but noticeably, like touching stone in a cathedral. He read the letter. His expression did not change, but the temperature in the entrance hall dropped several degrees. The footman shifted uneasily. "This letter is void," he said. "I did not request it. I will not honor it. Miss Ashcroft, your position is reinstated. Your quarters will be restored within the hour." "My lord," Mrs. Haverford began, "we will discuss your conduct separately, Mrs. Haverford." His voice carried that centuries deep authority again. "In my study, this evening." The housekeeper left. The footmen scattered. Cordelia stood in the hall beside her trunk and counted her heartbeats until they slowed. "Thank you," she said. It cost her something to say it. She was not accustomed to needing rescue. "You would have managed without me," he said. "The ledger was a better weapon than anything I offered." "It was, but I preferred to choose when to use it." She bent to gather her things. "You reversed her action. That was yours to do as master of the house. But if you had not come, I would have gone to the magistrate myself." "I believe you." He paused. "Miss Ashcroft, will you still read tonight?" She looked at him. The late afternoon light fell through the hall windows, and she noticed that he stood precisely where the sunbeam ended, not within it, at its edge. "Same time," she said. "I've started Shelley." That night he sat in the second chair. She read Percy Bysshe Shelley's shorter lyrics while the candle flame held its impossible stillness. Halfway through Ozymandias, she stopped. "You don't cast a shadow," she said. She had been watching it, or rather, watching its absence. The candle threw her own shadow long across the reading table. His chair might have been empty for all the darkness it displaced. He closed his eyes. "I've noticed other things," she continued. "You don't eat at meals. You arrived in a carriage, but your luggage bore no evidence of travel dust. Your hands are the same temperature as the marble fireplace." She counted on her fingers. "4 things. 5. If we include the white roses no one planted. You are dangerously observant. I am an Ashcroft. We notice things. It's why we make good governesses and terrible heiresses." He opened his eyes. In the candlelight, they held a faint luminescence. Not red, not threatening, but amber, like sunlight through honey. "Ask me," he said. "What are you? What do you think I am?" "I think you are something that has lived a very long time. I think you were in this house before I sold it. I think the East Wing is yours in a way that has nothing to do with a deed of purchase." She set Shelley aside. "I think you knew the woman I remind you of, and I think she died." "In 1403, he said. The number pressed itself against their silence between them. "Her name was Cordelia," he said. "She read to me too." Cordelia absorbed this. She counted the years, 451. "I am not her." "I know." "Do you? Because you look at me as though you're waiting for her to surface." "I am Cordelia Ashcroft. I sold my inheritance to save 27 families. I scrub floors. I count things when I'm frightened. I am not a reincarnation for you to recover." His face shifted. Something old and grieving moved behind it. "You are right, and I apologize." "Don't apologize. Just see me, not her." A log settled in the fireplace. The sound startled neither of them. "I will try," he said. "Good. Now tell me properly. What are you?" "I am a vampire," he said. The word fell between them with the weight of centuries. "I have existed since the 12th century. I sustain myself on the blood of animals. I have never harmed a human being." He looked at his own shadowless hands. "I purchased this house because it is the last place where I felt something other than isolation. Because of Cordell. Because of the library. Because someone once read in this room and the walls remembered it, and so did I." Cordelia was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up Shelley again. "Page 43, she said. "We stopped at the statue in the desert." He almost smiled. It was the first time she had seen anything close to it on his face. The next morning, Mrs. Haverford struck from an entirely new direction. A carriage arrived bearing a man in a black coat who introduced himself as Mr. Ormond, a representative of the district commissioner's office. He carried a portfolio of documents and a face that suggested he found everything distasteful. "I am here regarding a complaint," he announced in the morning room, where Lord Vael and Cordelia were both present. "A complaint of fraudulent misrepresentation regarding the sale of this estate." Cordelia's stomach dropped. She counted the documents in his portfolio, 6 pages visible. "The complaint alleges," Mr. Ormond continued, "that Miss Cordelia Ashcroft, former owner, failed to disclose structural deficiencies and outstanding liens against the property at the time of sale. The complainant seeks criminal prosecution for fraud and the immediate removal of Miss Ashcroft from the premises." "Who filed this complaint?" Cordelia asked. Mr. Ormond consulted his papers. "A Mrs. Eleanor Haverford, in her capacity as household steward." Cordelia's hands tightened on the arm of her chair. This was new. This was not a contract dispute or a petty reassignment. This was a criminal accusation. If it stuck, she would lose everything: position, reputation, and any hope of future employment. "The complaint is false," Cordelia said. "Every lien was disclosed in the original bill of sale. I have copies." "Do you have them here?" Mr. Ormond asked. "They were in my room, which Mrs. Haverford emptied yesterday." The realization hit like cold water. "She took them. She removed my documents before filing the complaint." Lord Vael leaned forward. "Mr. Ormond, I am the purchaser of this estate. I was fully informed of all conditions at the time of sale. I have no complaint against Miss Ashcroft." The law permits third-party complaints in cases of suspected fraud, my lord. Your satisfaction does not preclude investigation. Mr. Ormond stood. Miss Ashcroft, you have 7 days to produce the original disclosure documents. If you cannot, the matter will proceed to the magistrate. He left. The morning room was very quiet. She took my papers, Cordelia said. She knew exactly what she needed to destroy. Lord Vael stood. Then we find them before she destroys them. We? This is my home. She is my employee, and she has attacked you under my roof. His jaw was set. I will not permit it. I appreciate the sentiment, but the papers are mine to find and my case to defend. Cordelia stood too. However, if you happen to know where a housekeeper might hide documents she doesn't want found, I would accept that information. There is a locked cabinet in the still room. She keeps the key on a chain around her neck. Then I need that key. I could simply take it from her. No, then. Cordelia's voice was sharp. If you use whatever power you have to intimidate a human woman, you become the kind of creature the stories warn about. I will not let you be that. He looked at her with an expression she could not read. Surprise, perhaps, or gratitude. Then how, he asked. I'll think of something. I always do. 12 ideas usually come before a good one. She was already counting possibilities. They searched together. Lord Vael provided knowledge of the house's hidden spaces, passages and compartments that predated the Ashcroft ownership by centuries. Cordelia provided knowledge of Mrs. Haverford's habits and routines. In the butler's pantry, checking the false bottom of a tea chest, Cordelia's hand brushed against his. The coldness was startling again. She did not pull away. You're always cold, she said. Not always. When I listen to you read, I feel warmer. He seemed surprised by his own admission. Shelley has that effect. Very inflammatory politics. He laughed. It was a quiet sound, as if his throat had forgotten the mechanics of it. But it was real. She noticed he had stopped looking through her. He was looking at her, at the ink stain on her cuff, at the way she counted drawers before opening them. At her, specifically. 3 drawers left, she said, because saying the number steadied her. The next day, Mrs. Haverford played her final card. She brought a visitor. Lady Drummond, the most influential woman in the county, arrived at Briarstone in a carriage that smelled of expensive perfume and social authority. I have come at Eleanor's request, Lady Drummond announced in the drawing room. She did not sit. She looked at Cordelia the way one examines a stain on a tablecloth. The matter of Miss Ashcroft's continued presence here has become a concern for the district's respectable households. In what way? Lord Vael asked. He stood by the window, precisely at the shadow's edge. A woman of fallen circumstances living unchaperoned in the home of an unmarried lord. The implication is unavoidable. Lady Drummond adjusted her gloves. If Miss Ashcroft is not removed, the families of this district will withdraw their social recognition of Briarstone Hall. Social death, for the house and for its master. And for Cordelia, whose reputation was the only currency she had left. Mrs. Haverford stood behind Lady Drummond with the expression of someone laying down a winning hand. 6 families, Cordelia said. She had counted them. 6 families in this district with enough influence to enforce a social withdrawal. 3 of them owe their tenant leases to the terms I negotiated during the sale. They might wish to reconsider their position. Lady Drummond's composure flickered. Are you threatening the county's gentry, Miss Ashcroft? I am reminding them of their obligations. There is a difference. I learned it from my father, who spent his fortune fulfilling his. Your father died in debt. My father died having ensured that every family on this land could remain on it. That is not failure, Lady Drummond. That is a legacy you cannot buy with perfume and calling cards. The silence in the drawing room was extraordinary. Even Mrs. Haverford looked uncertain. Lord Vael spoke. Miss Ashcroft's position is legitimate and contractual. She serves this household with distinction. Any social consequences of her presence will be borne by me. Lady Drummond left without the capitulation she had come for. But the threat lingered. Cordelia felt it in the way the remaining servants avoided her eyes at dinner. That night she did not go to the East Wing library. She sat in her small room and counted the cracks in the ceiling. 14. A knock, soft, barely audible to human ears. She opened the door. Lord Vael stood in the dim corridor. In his hands were papers, yellowed, creased, bearing her father's handwriting. The still-room cabinet, he said. They were behind a false panel, not in the locked compartment. She had hidden them more carefully than we expected. Cordelia took the papers, the original disclosure documents. Every lien listed, every condition specified. Proof that she had not committed fraud. "How did you find the panel?" she asked. "I built this house, Miss Ashcroft. In 1612, I know where every panel sits." She stared at him. "You built Briarstone." "I commissioned it for Cordelia. She never lived to see it finished." The weight of 4 centuries pressed into the corridor between them. She held the papers against her chest. "I am going to save myself with these," she said, "and then I am going to deal with Mrs. Haverford. And then I am going to sit in that library and read you something that is not about ruined statues and deserts." "I look forward to it," he said. But in the morning, Cordelia discovered that Lord Vael had gone to Mr. Ormond himself. He had produced his own copy of the sale documents, testified to the completeness of the disclosure, and requested the complaint be dismissed. He had also instructed his solicitor to file a counter-complaint against Mrs. Haverford for misuse of household authority. He had done it without asking her. She found him in the morning room. He was reading, or pretending to. "You went to Ormond," she said. "I did. The complaint has been withdrawn. Your position is secure." "I had the documents. I was going to present them myself." "I know, but the matter was urgent and I—" "You what?" Her voice carried edges she had not shown him before. "You decided that my fight was yours to finish? That my sacrifice, selling this house, becoming a servant, enduring 18 months of Mrs. Haverford's cruelty, was something you could tidy up in a morning visit to a bureaucrat?" He set down his book. "I was trying to help. You were trying to fix. There is a difference. Nine times in my life someone has tried to fix what I chose to endure. Every time it made things worse. How could resolving a fraudulent complaint make things worse? Because now the district believes Lord Vael saved the helpless former owner. Not that Cordelia Ashcroft proved her own integrity." She stepped closer. "I sold this house, Lord Vael. I chose to fall. I chose this position. I chose to stay and protect those tenants. Every sacrifice was mine. When you act for me without asking, you take those choices away." The room was utterly still. He looked at her, not through her, not past her, not at the ghost of a woman dead 4 centuries. At her, at the anger in her face and the pride holding her spine straight. "You are right," he said. "I overstepped. Significantly. I will correct it. I will have Ormond reopen the matter so you may present your own documents. That would make us both look ridiculous." "Then tell me what you need," she breathed. "I need you to understand that when I sold Briarstone, I did not just lose a house. I became someone new, someone who earns her place. If you erase the cost of what I did, you erase the person I became, and I will not be erased. Not for convenience, not for kindness, not even for a man who built this house for someone who looked like me." The last sentence landed between them like a stone in still water. "I am sorry," he said. The words were simple. They held 400 years of weight. "I know," she said. She pulled a loose thread from her sleeve. "The counter-complaint against Mrs. Haverford. Is that still proceeding?" "Only if you wish it." "I wish it, but I want to present the evidence myself." "Then you shall." They looked at each other across the morning room. The sunlight fell in a stripe between them. He stood on the dark side. She stood in the light. Neither moved to close the distance. "Tonight," she said, "I am reading Byron. He suits my mood." The hearing took place in the Briarstone drawing room 4 days later. Mr. Ormond returned with his portfolio. Lady Drummond attended as a witness at Mrs. Haverford's insistence. Lord Vael stood by the window. 3 members of the household staff were present. Mrs. Haverford sat with her hands folded. She had dressed carefully. She looked, Cordelia thought, like a woman who believed she had already won. "Mr. Ormond," Cordelia began. She stood at the center of the room. She had not asked for permission to speak first. She simply spoke. "I present the original disclosure documents from the sale of Briarstone Hall, signed by myself and witnessed by 2 solicitors. She laid the papers on the table. Mr. Ormond examined them. "These are complete," he said. "Every lien is documented." "Furthermore," Cordelia continued, "I present a ledger maintained by myself over the past 18 months. It records the systematic removal and sale of household silver by Mrs. Eleanor Haverford. 16 pieces, sold to a Mr. Grimes of Thornton Village. Total value approximately £140. She laid the ledger beside the documents. She had hidden it in the East Wing library, among the books, where no servant would go. Mrs. Haverford's composure shattered. "That ledger is fabrication. Mr. Grimes has confirmed the sales in a signed statement," Cordelia said. She produced a third document. "He was quite cooperative when I visited him yesterday. He even showed me the receipt book. Your handwriting, Mrs. Haverford. Quite distinctive." The room was silent. Lady Drummond looked at the housekeeper with the expression of a woman reassessing an alliance. "I also wish to note," Cordelia said, "that the fraud complaint against me was filed using information Mrs. Haverford obtained by illegally removing my personal documents from my quarters. Those documents were recovered from a hidden compartment in the stillroom. Their location demonstrates premeditation." Mr. Ormond closed his portfolio. "The original complaint against Miss Ashcroft is dismissed. The matter of the missing silver will be referred to the magistrate. Mrs. Haverford, you are advised to secure legal representation." Mrs. Haverford stood. Her face was the color of old plaster. She looked at Cordelia with something beyond anger, the particular hatred of someone who has been outmaneuvered by a person they believe to be beneath them. "You were always too proud for a servant," she said. "I was always too observant for a thief," Cordelia said. Seven months I waited to use that ledger. I am a patient woman, Mrs. Haverford." The housekeeper left the room. She left the house that afternoon. She did not return. Lady Drummond approached Cordelia afterward. "You might have told me about the silver. You might have asked me instead of believing her." Cordelia did not soften the words. "But I would be happy to discuss the tenant agreements whenever you're ready. I know them from memory." Lady Drummond studied her for a long moment. Then she inclined her head, not quite a bow, but close. "I shall call on Tuesday," she said. The drawing room emptied. Lord Vael remained by the window. The stripe of sunlight had moved during the proceedings. He had moved with it, staying always just outside its reach. "You were extraordinary," he said. "I was accurate. Extraordinary would have been forgiving her." Cordelia gathered her documents. Her hands were shaking, though her voice had not. "I need to sit down." "The library?" "The library." They walked together through the gallery and into the east wing. The air shifted at the threshold, warm, fragrant with cedar and old paper. The white roses on the reading table had been replaced. Fresh ones, still no explanation for their origin. Cordelia sat in her chair. He sat in his. The candle flame, as always, held perfectly still. "I have something to say," he said. "Then say it. I have lived for 7 centuries. In that time I have loved once. When Cordell died, I believed that love was finished for me, a closed account." He paused. "When I saw you in the entrance hall, I saw her face, and I wanted to believe she had come back. She hasn't. No, she hasn't. You are not Cordell. You are fiercer than she was. You count things she never noticed. You sold a fortune to save strangers, and you refused to let me take the credit." He leaned forward. "I do not love you because you remind me of her. I love you because you corrected me when I confused the two of you. No one has corrected me in 400 years. Cordelia's eyes stung. She counted the roses on the table. 6. "There are things that prevent this," she said. "You said? You know that?" "I know. The vampire council you mentioned, the one that governs your kind, they do not permit open attachments with humans. They do not. And if you defy them, they will take this house, the sanctuary you built. They will tremor, and the tenants I protected, the agreements I negotiated. If Briarstone changes hands again under duress, those agreements are void." She set down the book she had not opened. "I did not sell my inheritance to watch it destroyed by a political conflict between immortals." He was quiet. The candle flame burned. Somewhere in the house, a clock struck 10. "Then we do this properly," he said. "I petition the council. I present our case. It will take time. How much time? A year, perhaps two. And during that time, I remain here. You remain here. We do not declare publicly what exists between us. We protect the tenants. We protect Briarstone. He looked at her. And I sit in this chair every night while you read to me. That sounds like patience, Opao. I have had 7 centuries of practice, she smiled. It was not a large smile. It was the kind that arrives when someone has been holding their breath and finally lets it go. Byron tonight, she said. I promised you Byron. You did. She opened the book. She found the page. She read. He listened. The candle flame held. The east wing, which every servant had fled, settled around them like a room that had been waiting to be used again. In the corridor beyond the library, the temperature was ordinary. The doors stayed closed. The frost that had haunted August had gone. It was as if the wing had been restless for years and had finally found what it needed. Someone reading. Someone listening. The simplest thing in the world. 6 months later, on a Tuesday evening in April, Cordelia arrived at the library to find the reading table set with 2 cups of tea. The tea was still warm. Lord Vael, Lucian, as she had come to call him in this room and only in this room, sat in his chair with an envelope in his hand. From the council, he said. She set down her book. Open it. He did. He read it. His expression shifted from caution to something she had not seen on his face before. Relief was too small a word. It looked like sunrise on a surface that had only known moonlight. They have agreed to hear the petition, he said. In Vienna, in October. Then you'll go to Vienna. We will go to Vienna. They wish to meet you. Cordelia picked up her tea. She counted the leaves floating on the surface. 3. I have never been to Vienna. I don't speak German. I have one dress suitable for formal occasions, and it is 2 seasons out of fashion. You face down a corrupt housekeeper, a district commissioner, and a county aristocrat with a ledger and a sharp tongue. I think Vienna will manage. She laughed. It was the kind of laugh that arrives when someone remembers they are allowed to have a future. 17, she said. 17 what? 17 pages left of Byron. If we're going to Vienna, I intend to finish him first. She opened the book. He leaned back in his chair. The white roses on the table had opened fully, their petals soft as breath. Outside, the April wind pressed against the east wing windows, and the glass held firm, and the candle burned without flickering. The room kept its warmth like a promise it had made long before either of them had learned to trust one.